find me today aboard my KTM 1290 Superadventure S, and there's a couple of tales to tell, in fact more than a couple of tales to tell. But what I'm doing today is I'm just meeting up with a couple of good friends of mine, Chris and Richard, and we're just going to have a, what you might call a quick start of season trip out, probably to Squires or somewhere, just for a quick brew. And I'm hoping everything's working here, because I had some issues with the GoPro Hero 3 recording sound, which I think has transpired to be the Lavalier microphone. But in the meantime, this is actually being filmed on a Drift Ghost X with the microphone adapter plugged in, so I'm hoping there are going to be no issues with this, because the microphone, the adapter, everything is from Drift. So in terms of compatibility, I'm not expecting any issues, providing I've got the setup correct. And the camera you can see my fat face on is in fact the original GoPro Hero 3 that I was using. So let's see if this setup works a little bit more seamlessly than previously was the case. So, issues with this bike. The first thing I want to say about this bike, KTM 1290 Superadventure S, which really I sort of got very interested in after seeing a couple of reviews, particularly the Missenden Flyers review. And the bottom line is, it's a very fast, powerful, agile, packed with technology adventure bike. And there are not many motorcycles in which all of those factors come together. But the risk of tempting Providence, got this bike in November, it's now April, still under warranty. But the first issue was, very early on, the race on button, which is that grey button there, that just packed in. Which was extremely annoying, so I had to have the bike recovered from home, taken to the KTM dealership, a good 20 miles away in Dewsbury. And fine, they diagnosed the fault, replaced the switch, fine. Then a couple of months after that, I was out around Tadcaster Way, and suddenly I wasn't able to select a gear. And I ended up stationary in some form of neutral, but certainly without any drive on the bike, and wondering what huge gearbox calamity had befallen me. And eventually I managed to get the bike into third gear, and I got home just in third gear, which is a testimony really to the power of the engine. So again, I had to get recovery on a low loader, back to the KTM dealership. Transpires, very simple matter. The gear lever has a retaining bolt which attaches it to the shaft in the gearbox, and that had come loose. And according to the technician, quote, "It's KTM's fault, when they assembled the bike they didn't use any thread lock." Which is a worry, it's a concern if that's what's happening. But anyway, so that was put right under warranty, no issues. Then came yesterday on the way to work. I had issues with what I thought at the time was the electronic steering lock, because I'd applied the lock by holding onto the race on button. Electronic lock kicks in, and I had read that there were issues with the sensitivity of the electronics, and sometimes there's a need to take the pressure off the bike or off the steering to enable the lock to release. And I had a couple of presses of the race on key to bring the bike to life, and it didn't work, and I'd assumed it was the steering lock issue. Eventually fired up, no problem, on to work, and then finish at work yesterday afternoon, and lo and behold, press the race on key, transponder key in my pocket, and one flash of the orange light followed by two, and nothing but nothing would bring her to life. So I ended up calling recovery again. Told me it'd take 2 hours, so I used that time to fiddle around a bit, and just by pure determination of in terms of the numbers of attempts, came to life again, got it home. Anyway, I think and I hope and pray that I've got to the bottom of the issue this time, so it's not the switch again, which it shouldn't be, having fitted a new part. It's the battery, I believe, in the transponder key, and what I wasn't doing is there's a little place down there, and that's exactly where you have to actually physically hold the key against to allow the bike to recognise the transponder without the transponder sending a signal using the power of the battery. So if the battery's flat, the handbook's quite clear, what you do is you actually physically hold the key right up against that spot there. Now what I was doing at work was I was holding it round here somewhere, and it wasn't making the slightest bit of difference. And actually the one flash and then two flashes that you get if you press the key is what you get if the transponder key is not present. So that's just saying can't find the transponder key. So this morning I think I had about 20 attempts at this to make sure that it worked every time. Press the button without the key, get the 3 flashes, put the key right up against the transponder aerial there, comes to life straight away. And you know, I didn't want to take any chances with it just being a fluke response, so I did it about 20 times, and every time exactly the same pattern. No joy with the transponder key away. As soon as you place it right up against here, comes to life, no problem. So I don't think it was ever an issue to do with the electronic steering lock. So I've ordered some new batteries, so what I'm going to do today is every time I need to fire up the bike is to do that, and I've also got the spare non-battery transponder key with me. Now if there's issues again today, I'll be furious, and you'll get to know about it. If there's no issues today, I'll be somewhat relieved. So let's see how we get on. So just setting off from Dick Hudson's pub at Eldwick in Bingley here, and I'm just going to set off back down to Chris's house, because it'll be about another 5-10 minutes before he's ready, and let's see how we get on. Okay, so let's crack on towards Chris's, see if Richard's coming out with us. I've put a fair few extras on this bike, but I think the best ones are the Heed crash bars, the orange ones, and this Puig large screen, because on the original screen I was getting an awful lot of buffeting. This screen has the spoiler on the top, which creates a laminar flow effect which cuts out the buffeting, and it's been a dramatic improvement. But then you see, I am 6'1", so that might have been the reason for those initial issues with the original screen. got everything here, the quick shifter, the auto blipper on the way down, lean sensitive, ABS, electronic suspension. The only thing this bike doesn't have is what I wouldn't want, which is the hill hold. I just don't fancy that. And there's Richard's GS. Richard?
You alright, mate?
Alright, buddy. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
You're on camera, so smile.
Hello. Where's he gone?
He'll have set off, he thinks he's leading.
Right, I'm off then.
Alright. Right, okay, so here we are on the road, on our way to Squires. Chris is leading in front on his F850 BMW. Richard's in front of me on his GS Adventure, liquid cooled. I'm on the KTM Superadventure. And I'm hoping you can see my new helmet, which is a Shark Spartan Carter, which we got for 150 quid, and they retail at about 300, and they've got very good write-ups, and it's very comfortable. And I know they say that you shouldn't buy things like this directly from the internet, but I did, and perhaps I've just been very lucky, but it fits fine. It's great, and it matches the bike, more important. So, I hope what I was saying earlier isn't tempting Providence regarding the issues. But just setting off from Chris's there, just held the transponder key up against the aerial and no problem so far, so everything's crossed. And we've had a spell of pretty good weather, you know, for very early spring. Unfortunately, next week I've taken the week off, and typically it's down to 8-9 degrees and unsettled. And I suppose it is April, and we should not ordinarily expect an awful lot different. However, if we can have a 2019 summer that was anything like the 2018 summer, I'll be very happy with that. And why are we stopping already? So what can I tell you about the KTM 1290 Superadventure S, as somebody that also rides an air-cooled BMW R1200 GS Adventure? Well, it's not a fair comparison, insofar as the older BMW, of course, technologically speaking, is 8 years behind this one, and the evolution of motor vehicle technology over an 8-year period is substantial, so it's not entirely valid. But the most obvious difference with this bike is you scarcely believe it's an adventure bike when you wind the throttle back, particularly in sports mode, because the power is stupefying. 160 brake horsepower from this LC8 V-twin engine in an adventure bike. And if you wind the throttle back expecting it to feel similar in terms of acceleration to the air-cooled GS, then like me, you'll be in for a very big surprise. And it's the first time I've come close to having the wheel lift up at the front. So the first thing to say is the engine is absolutely stonking. The TFT dash that you can see there, well, I hope you can see, very clear, lots of functionality, and you can assign various functions just to one key. So if you just want the one key to turn your heated grips on and off, for example, you can assign that feature from the sub-menus. Other than that, handles beautifully, doesn't feel particularly top heavy for such a big bike, lots of carrying capacity. I have the Boomot luggage on, which is I think it's made out of the same stuff they make bank vaults out of, to be frank. I think Chris is just like the true gentleman that he is just stopping periodically to make sure we're still both behind. So that's typical of Chris, an absolute gentleman. So yeah, it's all about the engine and the technology. You know, lean angle sensitive ABS, and the vehicle's fitted with an IMU so that it knows where it is in pitch, roll and yaw. You can adjust the machine's handling appropriately, and the braking, throttle response, things of that nature. I love the looks. I mean, it divides opinion. The looks of KTMs do tend to divide opinion, but I think they look great simply because they don't look like anything else. They have a very, very singular, instantly recognisable appearance, which I find quite attractive. You know, the aesthetics of the bike are absolutely fine for me. As I say, the luggage carrying capacity, as well as the Boomot panniers on this, I have the big Giveaway Trekker Outback 58 litre box. It's huge. So as a practical machine for all-round use, hard to fault really. I just always at the back of my mind is with a bike that's packed with electronics as to what issues can present themselves. I think I'm always happy with something which is ostensibly mechanical and a bit electrical where it has to be. I mean, the old school bike that's appealing to me now that you can buy new, very reasonably priced, is the Kawasaki GTR 1400. Big bruiser of a 4-cylinder tourer, been around quite a while. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles by any means, but I just wonder, because I do like full dress tourers and they seem to be on the way out. I know BMW still do, obviously, the R series and the K series, but Triumph have stopped doing the trophy. The Honda Pan-European, fantastic bike, I've had one, that's not been updated since 2002, so it remains to be seen if they do anything with that. Suzuki have never made one, to my knowledge. You know, your Harleys are more custom bikes than they are full dress tourers, to my way of thinking. So I'm just Yamaha. I see the belt drive going on there on Chris's bike.
Are you filming?
Yeah.
Cool.
I think Richard's after his equity card. Am I filming? Yeah, I'm flashing red, so I'm filming. It's supposed to be a 5-hour battery life on these drifts, which is massively better than the 45 minutes that you tend to get from the GoPro batteries. It's a nightmare, this junction. So, there we go. This is usually where you can let her rip, so I'll just... Blimey. Oh my lord, the power on this bike. Unbelievable. Dear oh lord. Fourth gear's endless. Test your handling on any bike here on this bend. So we're coming up to Harewood House. They have lots of vintage car shows here. There's a famous aviary if you're into birds, feathered kind. There's a bit of a cafe going on apparently that's popular with cyclists. Not sure about motorcyclists. Richard was just saying, I mean, he uses that bike to ride to work in Bradford, so it's a year-round bike. It's fairly new, as you can see, but he's absolutely blathered it in ACF 50. So it's probably the right way to go actually, but we haven't had a particularly bad winter. But it's in good nick. You know, you can tell when a bike's in good nick, even if it's absolutely black bright, filthy, muddied up to the eyeballs. You can tell if it's in good fettle, and that one clearly is. I got it from Jeffries, Baildon. Big BMW dealership, recently expanded. When I retired in 2013, I treated myself brand new to a fully spec'd up, top of the range BMW K1600 GTLE. So I rode for 3 years, did about 15,000 miles on her. Great bike, lovely bike, packed with technology, but talk about top heavy. You know, when it comes to the, you know, you wouldn't want to go hard knock pass on it, that's for sure. It's just not quite as big as the Goldwing, but pretty close. And it was just too top heavy. But would you believe I sold that and bought a Triumph Rocket 3 Touring, 2.3 litre. Mind you, the new one's 2.5 litres. I quite enjoyed that, but just not a practical bike, to my way of thinking. But hugely over-engineered piece of kit it was, certainly. Now this particular road from Harewood to Collingham has a long 1.5-mile stretch which is dead straight, and my former colleagues in the constabulary are quite keen to position themselves here from time to time, so just got to be a bit careful, especially on a bike like this where it's way too easy to get into naughty speed territory. Sometimes think at junctions like that where the very positioning of the of the bike obviates the need to signal. There's no point in signalling the blatantly obvious. I mean, of course, the purpose of any signal is to inform other road users of your intentions. But if either there's nobody there to inform, i.e. no other vehicles, so you can signal to the pigeons, or if, as with that junction, it's blatantly obvious by the nature of the layout of the junction and the position of the bike exactly where you're going. Now you might have seen there a bit of fork dive, which is typical of adventure bikes, but it doesn't happen with the BMW, and that's because of the telelever suspension at the front end. It's like a wishbone suspension arm that attaches to the forks. I mean, I don't mind a bit of nosedive, it's quite characterful, but I know keen GS owners like the fact that when you give it a fistful of brakes, there's no dive at the front end. It's clever stuff. There's the shocks on this at the front, WP white power shocks. The brakes are Brembos. All sort of high-end stuff, commensurate with the performance of the machine, of course. The tyres I've got on here are Pirelli Scorpions. That's what she came with. Feel fine to me. And since I don't take the bike out in the wet, I couldn't really tell you what they're like in the wet, but I've no reason to believe they're anything other than supremely competent. There's the dash turning to night mode as we went under the bridge there. They are oversensitive, these. And back again, look. It's good discipline riding in a group, really. I mean, it does clip your wings slightly. Obviously, it has to do. Otherwise, the whole endeavour lacks coherency. But it's good road discipline, because you really do have to not only think for yourself, but think for the people that you are, or think of the people that you're riding with. And Chris's bike at the front, he's limited to 5,000 RPM. Because it's not running yet. It's not even near its 600 mile service, that bike. But like Richard, as you can see, I like to leave the boxes on. I mean, they are, they are substantial both on the GS and on on the KTM. But I don't know, I'm not one for whipping the boxes off and just leaving the top box on. I mean, I know there are arguments about high speed stability with the boxes on, and they do slightly interfere with that, but not dramatically so, I don't think. And I think the other argument that's used is the filtering argument, but I don't quite get that, because the widest part of the bike's the handlebars, you know, and if the handlebars go through, everything else should go through, and you can't ride without the handlebars, so the palaver of offing the boxes for a run out, I don't quite get that. You know, quite understand why a lot of people want to do that. But I tend to think when I'm out on the XJR, which has no luggage whatsoever, and the world's smallest underseat compartment, the number of times I've actually, say, gone into the shop at Squires or somewhere like that and bought something thinking I'm on the GS or this KTM, and then getting back to the bike and thinking, well, where on earth am I going to put this, you know. You can end up with all sorts of strange large objects strapped to your back because you think you've come on a bike with luggage and you haven't. I suppose the only thing about this bike that people tend to cite as a negative point, that's the fact that it's not shaft drive, it's chain drive. Now, that may be because KTM have never had a shaft drive bike of any description, and they don't have the tooling or the design for it. It may be a conscious decision to keep the weight low, because for a big adventure bike this is a relatively light bike. It comes in at around 235 kilos wet, I believe, which is a good bit lighter than the BMW, and a lot of that will have been achieved through retaining a chain drive instead of a big heavy final drive shaft. So the flip side of that basically is that you have to maintain the chain. But actually on the bike, other than if you end up at a low speed in a gear that's patently too high, you know, you can sort of feel the slapping effect. But otherwise, you know, I can't tell that it's simply by riding it that it's a chain drive as distinct from the GS. And if you're a sports bike rider and you're wanting a bigger touring machine, stroke adventure machine, this is the one. You know, if you want to go and mix it with the boy racers, you can certainly do that and then some with this bike. very stable. Yeah, see a flicker Richard's brake light there, and of mine too. I just do not trust people not to turn right in front of you until I've seen the whites of their eyes, and then you get some lobotomised morons that will still pull out even when you've locked eyes with them. I don't know whether it's deliberate contempt or just the complete absence of a brain. A little hidey spot on the left here for the speed van a lot of the time. Here we come to the 30s at the brow of the hill, and then we're down into Tadcaster past the breweries. So I'm hoping, because I've got the visor up, that you can hear this awesome engine. It really does sound the business. It growls. And much as I do like the refinement of a 4-cylinder engine, there's something about the growl of a V-twin which says, yeah, motorcycle. So this is the B1222 into Squires. A fair few twisties on here. Say the B1222 into Squires, into Sherburn, or out of Sherburn rather. The directional leads is pretty much where we're at. Yeah, it's not as busy as I thought. Perhaps it's a bit early.
Yeah. Oh, 3 or 4 bike lanes behind you. I could hear you over your hand over mine. Oh dear. I was cursing her.
Have you been abusing members of the public?
I could have pulled up right next to her and that would have snookered her completely. Totally. Stupid woman. Stupid lady.
Would you like to describe her for the benefit of the camera? Before I turn it off.
When I stalled it halfway across. I know you did. You ended up sticking me at red light. I'm sorry, mate.
Oh, is that what happened? I did wonder. Okay, that was a very convivial little break at Squires, which is getting really busy now. Some cracking bikes to look at and some bang up to date 2019 models. It's been lusting over that Kawasaki ZZR 1400 there, Super Sports with the accurate exhaust.
6 exhaust bikes.
Yeah, it's ostentatious, wouldn't you say? Too much bling. Let's see how many innocent female motorists Chris can abuse on his way back now, after his little semi-road raid incident. Check behind, yeah, I've got Chris. Yeah, and I can see Richard's spotlights behind. So, let's exit Squires. Now he's got to remember, we've got people following, you can't just nip out as soon as you otherwise would. Always respect the 30s and 40s though, golden rule really. The A177 or the A172, I'm not sure. But that's nice.
Bugger, aren't you? I bet it was hardly ticking over as well, was it?
Oh, I was in neutral.
Nice bike. Are you going to keep it now? Here we go.
I'll let you know. to 30s. Restraint and respect. Oh, the good pairing of words there, restraint and respect. That's I think that's pretty much what it's about. Yeah, 15 degrees, actually feels warmer. Now I've given it so much beans there, it's the wind flows push the mirror back. I behave now. Didn't notice that. Might that be a design flaw on a bike like this, or might it just be the fact that I haven't tightened the mirror up when I fitted this. What's this, a Mexican standoff? We've either got a Mexican standoff going up ahead, or somebody's having a quiet conversation in the middle of Boston Spa. Chris is abusing us again. That old bugger back there. Oh, right. I thought Richard actually knew the latest squires quite well, but obviously he's not been for a long time, or doesn't normally use this route. It's probably me, just because I tend to be there on a regular basis, and just assuming that everybody else knows this particular route there through Otley, Poole, Harewood, Boston Spa here, etc. Get back. Okay. A little bit of sentencing going on.